So today I'm going to be doing another anti-haul video with so many new products coming out around this time of the year. There's a lot of stuff that I really just impulsively like and want to buy. Can you quit being bad? So especially during this time of the year, there's so many things that come out that I really want to buy, but of course I can't buy it all, and a lot of the times there are a lot of things that I either impulsively want to buy, but then the more I think about it, I'm like, you know, I really just don't need that. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a lot of products that have been coming out recently and just kind of my thoughts on why I don't want to buy it. Some of it is going to be stuff that is super easy for me to resist, while some of it's going to be stuff I really want and I'm trying my hardest to not buy. I think from my last anti-haul video that I did in July, I only bought one thing that was on that list, and that was of course the Melt Gemini palette. So I'm really glad I was able to resist all of that, and sometimes I feel like talking about the makeup products is kind of a way for me to like manifest it to not feel the need to buy the product. So hopefully that will be the case with this anti-haul video and I can save some money. So the first thing on my list is the Urban Decay Naked Cherry collection. Now first of all, I think like packaging wise it's very like visually stunning and really beautiful, but the one thing that I don't really like about it too much is just I feel like the whole Urban Decay Naked palettes are just kind of, I don't know, I feel like really bored of them and overplayed. Like everything is just like exactly the same, and I'm not a huge fan of that anymore. And I especially don't really care for monochromatic palettes too much, especially when they're all like those pink kind of colors, because if they're like, you know, 12 different pink colors in a palette, how different can all of them really look? Now, of course, you can probably get a whole bunch of different, you know, pink tone looks, but as far as like overall, what can you get out of that palette? Just monochromatics are not my favorite. I would much rather have a palette that's a little bit more diverse in color selections. You could do so many more things with it rather than just a couple like, you know, one note kind of looks. Unfortunately, the Urban Decay Naked Cherry collection is just something I have absolutely no interest in at all. The next thing has been on my list for quite a while, since I was like compiling a list of things that I really liked but probably wasn't going to buy. So this has actually been on my list for a while, and it was the Jaclyn Hill Vault collection, but specifically the Dark Magic palette. And the reason why is because I really liked that color story. There was like some peacocky kind of greens to it, definitely a little bit more of like a blue-green kind of cool toned vibe to the palette, which you just don't see a whole lot right now. I feel like everything's just warm tones, pinks, monochromatics, just blushes and berries and stuff, and I'm just kind of over it. I'm really waiting for these like dark greens and blues and teals and, you know, those kind of colors to really have their moment, especially now because I feel like it's just everything looks the same. So the Dark Magic palette had kind of been on my radar for a while, but then there was so much drama with like Morphe in general, and then of course with like all of these shadows, you know, some being pressed wrong and then it was fixed and then the problem wasn't fixed, and just kind of this ongoing dilemma and stuff of how the products were performing, and I just really don't feel like messing with any of that. I remember the price point seeming very affordable though, like maybe it was like $20 or maybe even $15 a palette, which is definitely a really good price value, I think. But as far as like actually buying the palette, I just haven't pulled the trigger, and I don't really think I will at this point. So yeah, but definitely like color story wise, I felt like that looked very beautiful and very different from things that have been coming out lately. So the next thing is a smaller palette. This is from Dose of Colors, and this is called the Snow Angels palette, and this one was like a really pretty kind of like color palette wise. Like it almost reminded me, like if you go on Pinterest and you see like these beautiful pictures of like sunsets, and then like they make a color palette out of colors from the image, that's almost what this palette reminded me of. And there was like this really beautiful like bright hot pink and this really beautiful like rich like navy-ish blue indigo color, and I remember like looking at that and I was like, wow, this like really stands out among all the other things coming out at the moment. But the more I thought about it, as beautiful as the palette was and as much as I liked the colors like just visually, I knew it was something I wouldn't get a whole lot of use out of, just because how often do I wear these like electric blue and hot pink kind of eyeshadow colors? Not too often. So I definitely really appreciate like the, I guess, uniqueness of the palette and kind of like the chance they took for, you know, not just putting out a super boring eyeshadow palette. Now they did have like more of a toned down version of one that was released with it that was more like neutrals and kind of browns and stuff, which is of course, you know, really standard, but it's what sells, and honestly it's what people wear a lot of the time anyway. Not everyone is like the super bright neon kind of color person, but I loved that the actual palette was so beautifully stunning, and it was just one I couldn't justify buying. The next one on my list was actually the Emily Edit collection from Makeup Revolution. Now, I have been a viewer of Emily for so long now. I feel like she has been around forever, and one thing I really like about her is that she's just like a real person. She's not this like crazy over the top like caricature of crazy personality or anything. She's like a real down-to-earth person, and I really like that about her because she's not like putting on a show. It's really kind of about, you know, her love for makeup and stuff, and I feel like she's just a very average woman, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but she's just so like, she's just like such a breath of fresh air, with not, you know, people trying too hard and stuff in their videos, and I think that really shows through like how genuine she is. And so whenever I heard that she was, you know, finally getting her own makeup collab and stuff, I was like so proud of her, and I really think she did a beautiful job, like packaging wise. It's so stunning, and the colors she chose, and I really like how much thought she put into the palette. Even like the names of the colors, you know, really had meaning to her, which I really love. But even as much as I like Emily, it still just wasn't enough for me to want to spend the money. I remember the price being like really affordable as well, and I definitely really like that about you know, how she did a collab that really seemed right for her channel and not one that was like really kind of out of left field. But there was some issues with like quality wise, like with mold being in some palettes and stuff, and of course that could happen to any brand really, so it's not really something I'm specifically knocking against her, but really just honestly the palettes, as beautiful as they were, it wasn't really anything that really, I don't know, touched me in a way that made me want to buy it. But they were very beautiful and really nicely done, and I definitely wish her all the best of luck for her collaboration. Another thing I never quite realized until the Emily Edit palette came out is that Makeup Revolution has so much makeup. I pretty much only knew from them of what they sell from Ulta's website and in stores, but if you actually go to Makeup Revolution's actual website, they have so much stuff that I like didn't even know that they had. Like, I'm talking like almost hundreds of pages of products that they have to sell. And one night I was going through and I was really like looking at a lot of the stuff, because I really haven't tried much at all from Makeup Revolution except for maybe like their concealer, and I think some of their baking powders are really the only things I've tried from them really. But another thing I noticed was that they seem to have a lot of ongoing like YouTuber slash influencer collaborations all at once, and it was something that kind of struck me in a weird way because it almost felt too almost like a cash grab kind of feeling, because there were literally like maybe 10 or so different collaborations going on. And whenever I see like a company doing that, especially one that is a lower price end, it just feels a little cheap to me. And I don't really mean to say that in a way to like, I don't know, demean any of the other people. I don't even know any of the other people aside from Emily who has a collection with them, but it just kind of felt like none of them really seemed that special because there were just so many of them all at once, and it seemed like none of them really had a chance to kind of shine on their own. It just felt like, I don't know, 10 different people putting their face on a palette and trying to like sell it to their, you know, audience and stuff, which I'm sure a lot of them put a lot of time and effort into creating their own palettes and stuff. It just, from the branding standpoint, it just felt really, I don't know, overwhelming. But I don't really have too many other thoughts on Makeup Revolution. I definitely would try a lot of their stuff in the future, but just at the moment, that was just kind of one thing that kind of rubbed me a little bit of a weird way. So the next thing is actually something I'm trying really hard to resist, and that is some of the mini palettes from Huda Beauty, and I believe it's called their Precious Stones makeup collection, specifically the Emerald palette. I believe there are 9 shadows in there, and I think the price of it was around $27-ish. But those greens really spoke to me. Like I said earlier, I feel like green eyeshadow just doesn't get enough playtime in like the beauty industry in general, and I don't know why, because they are so beautiful. I love me a good like minty teal, green, peacocky, pine, you know, forest hunter green, Kelly, just all of it. I really can't wait for greens to have their moment, and I'm trying so hard to resist that like mint matte color that just looks so beautiful. So we'll see if I end up buying it or not. I feel like out of all the things on my list, that could be one I end up buying, but for now I'm trying my hardest to just enjoy the beauty of it but not buy it. I'm gonna try to go a little bit quicker because I've got quite a few products still left to go through. So next was the Sephora palettes that came out from the Sephora collection. I believe last year they came out with 3 different palettes, or maybe it was 2, I can't remember, but they were definitely up there in price. I think they're about $68, and I remember seeing them and looking at how beautiful they were, and I think that a lot of people seem to like them. But they recently came out with 3 new palettes, and these just kind of spoke to me more than those first batch of palettes. The first one is called the new nudes, which are overall just like more like pinky and nude colors, you know, really warm tone and things like that. And even though the colors are not that different, just seeing the whole palette together just really looked really nice and really beautiful. But overall, just don't really think it's something that I really need. Next was the Editorial 2.0 palette, and this one I liked a lot more than the first one. The first one was one of those more like rainbow acid palette kind of, you know, color schemes, but this one almost had a little bit more of like a slightly like offbeat rainbow kind of thing to it. Definitely some of the colors were a little bit more subdued, and there were two colors that really spoke to me. It was one, it was like this powdery blue kind of matte color, and it's called Pegasus, and then there was like this mustardy yellow, like I think right above it, and it was called Omen. And for some reason those two colors just really stuck out to me. But the more I was thinking about it, I'm like, I am not gonna buy a $68 palette for like really two colors that kind of stand out to me. Of course there were a lot of other ones I liked as well, but those two were just really like, wow, those colors really caught my eye. And then the next one was the Smoky Jewels palette. This one is another really beautiful one. Of course, jewel tones like the name would suggest. But whenever I first saw it, it almost reminded me a lot of the Urban Decay, was it called On the Run or Born to Run? I can't remember, one of those names. But it reminded me a lot of that kind of palette. Now I haven't actually like really looked at those two palettes side by side, but I just remembered in my mind when I was looking at that palette, I was like, oh, that one kind of really reminds me of that one. So the next palette is the ABH Sultry Palette. Now I have to say, packaging wise, that is absolutely beautiful, and even like colors, those are stunning. They look so nice. But I just feel like I don't need it. Like, yeah, they're beautiful colors and I'm sure they apply really well and they look nicely, but honestly, I don't need more palettes. And that's like 99% of the things that I have the hardest time, I guess, resisting is makeup palettes. I don't really need it. I'm sure I have tons of things in my collection that already look like that, but I'm just gonna have to leave that one in the past. And I still have resisted the Norvina palette, which I'm surprised I've able to do for this long, but again, that one is like my number one out of all the ABH palettes. Like if I was going to get one, I feel like Norvina would be the number one. The next thing I'm really not interested in is the Too Faced Gingerbread collection. And overall, I just have not been excited about Too Faced in quite a while. I feel like the last thing I bought from them was one of their holiday collections from 2016, I think. And since then, I just really, I don't know, I feel like all their holiday collections especially tend to be very similar. Like there's always that like bright, shitty purple in every single holiday palette, but I just really haven't been, I don't know, that excited about it. I feel like Too Faced is one of those companies that really pushes out so much makeup. It is nearly impossible to keep up, and honestly, it's impossible for me to get excited about anything because the whole time I'm thinking, well, they're going to be coming out with something next month, so why should I get excited and spend money on this when they're probably gonna have something next month that I might even like more or maybe less. But it's just really hard for me to get excited about Too Faced anymore, just because I feel like quality wise they have kind of taken a step back and they've really prioritized quantity over quality, and I'm just not a huge fan of that anymore. So at the moment, I don't really see anything from Too Faced that's really speaking to me. Another new palette I saw was the KVD Lolita Palette. I think packaging wise, she always does a really good job with that and stuff because she is, you know, a visual artist and tattoo artist and everything like that. So visually I like all of her stuff, but of course, like I've always mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of her anymore. And honestly, like even just boiling it down and not really taking in consideration of, you know, her and herself, if I was just looking at the makeup palette, it looks like exactly like something you could get. The Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, it looks, you know, overall very similar to that color-wise. You know, maybe not dupe for dupe, but like overall color story, it's got that same, you know, monochromatic-y-ish. I feel like there's a little bit more variation in this palette, but overall, you're gonna get like some pink looks with that and very beautiful colors, but nothing I'm interested in purchasing. And the last few ones I'm gonna go through is the James Charles Morphe collection. Now overall, I think the palette looks really nice because it is one of those palettes that you get a lot of variety in, which is what I always kind of like. So it's definitely one of those that I feel like it could be your only palette if you are someone who has a really small collection, or you know, you don't want to spend a lot of money and you just want to get one thing that you could get so many different things out of. I feel like it's definitely these types of color configurations that would be most beneficial for you. But for me, I'm not a person that has a small makeup collection, and there was just nothing in there that really was a wow factor to me. But overall for me, I just don't really see anything that exciting for me. But it looks really nicely designed, and there's a lot of like hit and miss with like Morphe and stuff. Some people say the quality sucks, some people really like it. I'm actually using a Morphe palette right now for the month, and I really like it. So I don't know, I guess it just kind of really depends on your stance of Morphe and what you think about them. So yeah, that is it for my anti-haul number 2. Definitely let me know what kind of things have come out recently that you are either totally interested in, you're 100% gonna buy, or if there are things that, like me, you just kind of feel like meh about, or something you would have liked, you know, a few years ago, but now you're just like over it. Definitely let me know what kind of things you guys are not going to be buying. And yeah, so I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram, link is below. And until my next video, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.